Should be topic number 2 says, we blame the white man for 95% of our problem. This came with a video taking us to YouTube. Looks like this brother Nuri Muhammad is speaking. So we'll play the video, we'll watch it, and then we'll discuss it.
I heard you once say, we know how to make money, we just don't know how to spend it. Black people blame white people for 95% of our problems and still spend 97% of our money with them. Can you elaborate on that comment, please?
That's exactly, we're real close to the quote. I think I said that we've got dollars, but what we need is cents. You know, when you count the mathematics and look at Black people as a nation, there's 233 independent nations on the earth. Out of the 233 independent nations, Black people at $1.3 trillion are the 8th richest nation in the world. Yet we don't have anything in our community that we can call our own. So by the simple fact that we're the 8th richest nation on the earth and we don't have our own educational system, don't feed ourselves, grow our own food, is a sign that we got dollars, but we need some sense. So I said we blame the white man for 95% of our problems, but we still spend 97% of our money with them. That's bass accurate, if you count that.
And what's wild to me is that, like, I just observe life as it is. So every city I go to, I'm here in Indianapolis, right? And when I look around, I see Black people suffering. But then on the other hand, people tell me Black people are doing great. And sometimes I think they distort their position for the masses of the people. Well,
the most honorable Elijah Muhammad made this revolutionary observation about how to properly judge the rise or the fall of us as a nation. He said, no one individual can rise above the condition of their people. So you never should judge the individual few poster child mannequins in the storehouse of democracy's window, Negroes that have made it, to justify that we have made it as a people. We do have $1.3 trillion in money. That's income, though, and that's not wealth. So when the math is calculated, Black people only possess less than 2% of the wealth of the United States of America. Income and wealth are two different concepts. Income is the money you earn by exchange of your time or the sale of a good product or service. But wealth is when you exchange that money for something that either keeps value or increases in value over time. Black people, we are the leaders in unnecessary spending. We buy stuff we don't need from people that we don't like to impress people we don't know. And at the end of the math of the equation, we end up having nothing but a whole bunch of name brand stuff, but never businesses that we can pass down to our children or real estate that increases or keeps its value over time. So we've got income, but we don't have the wealth. That's why I said we've got dollars, but we need some sense. Out of that $1.3 trillion, Brother Lynn, do you know that we spend $23 billion a year on clothes, $11 billion a year on furniture, $3.2 billion on keeping up with the latest cell phone that came out, $46 billion on cars, $60 billion on legal and illegal drugs, $32 billion dressing up the outside of our head. But when it comes to dressing up the inside of our mind, which is the purchase of books, only 300 million is purchased in books. That would be fine if God said in Hosea 4:6, my people are destroyed from a lack of sew-ins, or my people are destroyed from a lack of temple tapers or phase, but my people are destroyed from a lack of knowledge. So we should be investing more in the building up of the mind and building up of our character, getting the sense that we need to go with those dollars, so that when we marry our wealth with some wisdom, we can actually leave something behind for our children and our children's children they can call their own.
I'm glad you said that. I have to put myself out there before I criticize anyone, right? When I was younger, based on my environment, it's a learned behavior. I'm ashamed to say this now publicly, but I thought I had to spend money. I really thought I had to spend money. Like if I had $100 in my pocket, I thought if I went out, I had to spend $100. I'm not sure if you had that mind frame younger on.
Well, I did too. You know, unfortunately, Black people's brains have been hardwired where we connect happiness to spending. We have to disconnect the wire in our brain from happiness and spending and take from happiness to saving and happiness to investing. Do you know that rich people stay rich because they pretend to be poor? And poor people stay poor because they pretend to be rich. We spend money. We literally are trying to buy respect, and we go broke trying to look rich. So when the math is done, I was talking to a brother in our barbershop one day, and I was telling him that when you have enough on the inside, you don't need the stuff on the outside to make you feel like you are something. And the brother, look, he verified the position. He said, you know what? I'm gonna tell you the truth. Me and my guys was out. We went to out of town, and we was on our way to go to the club. And whenever we start getting dressed, my partner realized that he had left his jewelry. And the minute that he seen that he didn't have his jewelry, I noticed that he got sad. And he didn't even go with us. Next day, I went down to the counter at the hotel room, and he was opening up a package. He had somebody overnight his jewelry to them. And when he grabbed the jewelry out, he took his watch, his chain, and put it on and told me, hey, I'm back. But he never went nowhere. Problem is that he felt a sense of worth from what he put on the outside of himself. But the real sense of worth doesn't come from the jewel you put on your finger, your wrist, or your necklace. The real sense of worth comes from the jewel you put in your mind with knowledge, wisdom, understanding, discipline, and character. So that we got it all twisted. And just like you, we had our brains hardwired improperly, where we connected the wire from happiness to spending instead of to saving and investing. And unfortunately, we have outsourced our happiness. We're looking for happiness to come from other people and other things in the outside material world, when the truth is happiness is an inside job.
I wanted to bring up one of the issues I have with everyone speaking about financial literacy. They break down the theories of things to invest in, but they don't talk about the internal things that needs to be done for you to be financially responsible.
So financial literacy is learning the alphabet. Financial literacy is learning phonics. You're learning how to sound out words. But when we were in school, they had another part of all the tests called reading comprehension, which means that I know how to properly dissect, discern, and make decisions based off the information in front of me. So we need the ABCs. We need the phonics of finance, but we also need to learn how to understand finance, comprehend it, that we can use it in the real world. So that's what you're saying. It has to go to another level where we learn how to use a dollar.
But even more than that, Brother Muhammad, is dealing with the insecurity and the ignorance that fuels us spending. That is what's not being touched on.
Well, that's, as we said earlier, see, the less you have inside of yourself, the more you think you need outside of yourself to make yourself feel like you are something. But if we began to really baptize our mind into a thorough knowledge of ourselves and began to feed our mind scriptural wisdom about the greatness of the original people and the power we have, the fact that we are the direct descendants of God himself. We literally are children of the Most High God, born with God's genetic makeup, holy heredity, and divine DNA. Prosperity is built in our plasma. When you start learning the rich legacy of where we came from, not just historically, but scripturally, then you start operating in the world where you have so much inside of you that anything you add to the outside is just a bonus, but it doesn't define you as who and what you really are. This literacy thing, financial literacy, it is good, but it has to transfer into wisdom and understanding of finances. In my meta-analysis of over 100 books on finance and investment, etc., I found that white people teach their children not just financial literacy, but teach them financial understanding and financial comprehension. And the general rule that you'll find that most Caucasian and wealthy people teach their children is to follow what's called the 10-10-10-70 rule. 10% of your money you should give to a cause you believe in, charity. 10% of your money you should save, put it in a savings account for yourself. The other 10% you should develop an investment fund to figure out how you can find something to make your money work for you instead of you working for your money. And then the rest of your life should be lived off that 70%. And I've also found that you'll see that wise people, they do not buy something once if they can't buy it twice. And if we started following that 10% charity, 10% investment fund, 10% saving, living off of 70%, not buying something once if we couldn't afford to buy it twice, we'll find that we are putting ourselves in a position where we always have cushion capital to deal with the problems of life, and we will not be engaged in this excessive unnecessary toil that comes from poverty. We'll be able to have a freer mind, less stress, and be able to have access to our creativity, find our purpose, fulfill our purpose, and get some real joy and happiness out of life.
You need to talk about this cushion and how it minimizes stress. That's like the most important thing with your bread. Like you have to always have a cushion because it keeps your stress level down.
That's right. You have to buy peace. Buy yourself some peace. See, the excessive toil that comes from poverty produces an undue amount of worry and pressure on your mind about what's going to happen today or tomorrow. And that's the difference really between life's negatives being defined as either a problem or a situation. See, if you have one of life's issues that show up that cost $1,000 to repair and you got $10,000 put up, that's not a problem. It's just a situation. But if you've got $1,000 issue of life that shows up that you need to repair and you only have 800, that's not a situation. Now you got a problem. So the blessing of resources is not what you can get with it that you want. The blessing of resources is not having to worry about fixing whatever you need to fix when you need to be able to do so. So, that's what cushion capital is. And I learned that from that meta-analysis. And I've tried to operate where I set aside resources so that when a circumstance does show up, even if I don't have it in my operational budget to handle it, I'll borrow money from myself at no interest and pay myself back and keep it moving. So that's a mathematical equation. We have the dollars, but we don't have the cents. Do you know that with $1.3 trillion, we are richer than Spain and Mexico? Spain has 46 million people just like us, but they're maintaining a 208,000 square mile landmass where they have their own educational system, their own government. They have their own world with the same amount of people we have with $600 billion less money. Mexico, 637 billion is what they bring in a year, but they're maintaining a 761,600 square mile landmass with 130 million people. Now, they're not living up to the standard that you might want to live up to, but don't tell me that they got 3 times the amount of people as us and half the money, and they have their own nation. We got double their money and only literally a third of their population. What should we be able to do for ourselves? We should stop, Brother Linton, spending so much time trying to repair the system. And let's take the resources that God gave us in our capital and in our wisdom, marry them together and stop trying to repair, and let's do our job to replace. That's what.
I stopped that a little bit short, but I think we got the gist of it. A lot of comments in the chat. Look like some of you guys are chomping at the bit to discuss this. I feel like Black Steel is probably getting the pot ready. So let me start with Black Steel. Black Steel, what say you to we blame the white man for 95% of our problems?
We need to blame the white man for 98% of our problems. Listen, white people get away with a lot of shit. The white man's PR is immaculate, right? White people go around and commit genocide on every inhabited landmass, commit ecocide, commit omnicide. But yet here we are turning around and talking about something ain't the white man's fault. It's all their fault. Fuck them. It's all their fault. So a couple of things he said that I took issue with. Number one, the idea of financial literacy, right? And I always take offense to that because black people ain't got no money. Just for example, right? The median income for African Americans in the United States is $41,361. The national median income is roughly $62,000, right? So the national median income in the United States is $62,000. That's median. That means household, right? For black people, it's $41,361. That's almost $20,000 less. Where's all this money talking about coming from? Even he said it himself. The money he's talking about is income, not wealth. All right. So the median income for white people is $71,000 for white people, whereas black people is only 41,000. All right. Unemployment rate for black people is 6.5. Unemployment rate for national average is 3.9. So what is he talking about? All this money. And then whenever they talk about this problem, right, they talk about how we spend things on inappropriate things, as if white people got their money through thrift and industriousness, and they pull themselves up by their bootstraps. No, white people got their money through theft, through murder. Okay, white people didn't gain control over over the continent of North America because they saved their money and they worked hard. No, they killed the Indians and they took their land and they brought over Africans and forced them to work for free. That's why white people have money. Okay, so I hate this the way we sanitize these crackers, right? And make it seem like here they are just working so hard. And if black people didn't buy sneakers, if they didn't buy their kids a PlayStation, we would be so much better. Like Dr. Umar would say, "Oh, don't spend your Christmas money and donate the money to my school." What are we talking about right now? What? But they want to push this myth, right? Another thing too, we talk about black people don't have schools, don't have banks or whatnot. Are we just going to ignore the fact how black institutions in the United States were systematically destroyed and undermined? Whenever you had black people who built wealth, you had white people coming on to destroy it, who would burn and kill and literally take the land from black people. It always makes it seem like black people just got free from slavery and we didn't do nothing. But we just sat on our hands playing checkers all day and let white people just come up and take everything, and we just sat back and do nothing. And while we was out here, buying carriages and going to sock hops. What are we talking about right now? This is again, it's a lack of historical analysis we're talking about. But then this is a member of the Nation of Islam, okay, who believes that we're from the long lost tribe of Shabbat. They're another cult. We talk bad about Jehovah's Witnesses. They're just another cult, just like another. I don't have no patience for these people, right? Because they talk a good game, but but it's not rooted in reality, right? There's no difference in the Hebrew Israelites. One day God's gonna come back and punish the white man as long as we, keep the Sabbath and eat a kosher diet, whatever the fuck that means, right? We got to stop living in Narnia and Middle Earth and whatever these magical fantasy lands, and let's deal with reality. Black people don't have no money, okay? A lot of the luxury goods we have, we buy them on credit, okay? We take a credit card and we could save for a luxury good. Most black people spend their money on housing, on food, okay? This whole idea that we just sitting up here on money and we just fucking it off and buying weaves and it's a racist trope because white people didn't get their money through hard work and industriousness. You can't name a landmass on Earth that white people haven't gone and killed the people and stole the land and stole the resources. There was a mountain of silver, I believe it was in Peru, that made the Spanish Empire wealthy beyond all imagination. They didn't get it because they studied hard and they taught their kids to save some and give. No, that's not what they did. What are we talking about right here? I'll leave it there. I'm getting heated right now. Peace.
I appreciate that, Black Steel. Ditso was saying something similar to you, Black Steel. So I'll hear from him now. Ditso, what say you to what you just said?
All right, so thank you. It's gonna be very simple. One, he loses. I'm gonna say it this way. Positive things he said is yes, we can agree that there are grades of economic illiteracy in populations of Afro descendancy throughout the whole continent. That yes, we can agree that there are some bad decisions happening. However, nothing in regards of generational wealth, nothing in regards of the impact of economic bad decisions of the different countries in this Western Hemisphere. Nothing to do with, he mentioned about the drugs, but he just scraped over it. Nothing to mention about the impacts of the war on drugs on Afro-descendancy populations, either in the United States, Canada, Mexico, and so on. Nothing to say how that the necessity has created then a direct link towards the participation of these populations, therefore having more affection in the matters of the war on drugs. Then I'm going to say it out loud. Islamic or Abrahamic religions are the tool of the white man that was utilized to destroy. And I have no respect whatsoever for individuals that mix a political conversation with a divine one. At that moment, what I'm seeing in front of me is a white man, not a person with melanin or someone like me. But yes, I will concede that I am an atheist. I have rejected all forms of religion. I give a damn about those religions. But I also see that type of conversation, mixing religious concepts with the political analysis, is the terrain of tyrants. And that terrain of tyrants had historically been European, aka white. And it's not like Islam is innocent. Islam invaded and conquered other people too. So in this sense, yes, we can have that conversation about the economic woes and the economic problems that affect Afro-descendancy of any of the nations, well, in my particular case, of the Western Hemisphere. But we must also call out, and I agree with the prior speaker, that the toxicity of Islamic or Christian or Catholic mixing with politics is a problem that is also affecting the Afro-descendancy in the Western Hemisphere as well as in the rest of the world. They become the worst enemies that one can have when we're trying to fix the issues or progress towards better outcomes. And if we continue allowing that, we're not gonna progress. We're gonna regress into the hands of tyrants that use religious ideas to control us. The worst enemy of a black man in the Western Hemisphere as well as the rest of the world is not only the white man, but the religion and the fundamentalist religion.
I appreciate that, Ditso. In the chat, Sister Ross says yes. She says yes, I conditioning programming for sure. Trigger Ivy 262 plus adds, LOL. There has been another debate on Twitter between Pan-African socialists and Dwayne Omowale on Arabs invading Africa and bringing Islam. The socialists are saying Arabs are black, then he uses some crying emojis. I saw that as well, Trigger. I thought that was a very interesting conversation that was going on there. With that said, let's hear from Real Black Gentleman. Real Black Gentleman, what say you?
I mean, I'm not a big like. We all know as black people, you know what I'm saying, the tens of millions of black people in the United States, and the tens of millions, hundreds of millions more outside, you know what I'm saying? Like about knowing how to spend money. And I mean, you know, money is one thing, but you know, one of the most important things that, you know, a nation spends money on is like military and like, you know, armies and stuff. And, you know, black people don't have army money like that. You know what I'm saying? They got these Patriot missiles going at $1 million a pop. You know what I'm saying? Who do you know in the hood got the missile factory? You know, I always tend to say like, who in the hood got these satellites? Who in the hood got these that's getting this info? So like, it's one thing to say, you can, and it is true. You don't want to, it is important. I mean, you don't want to be reckless in spending. You do want to save, but as much as saving goes, I mean, then, you know what I'm saying, you have to start breaking down. Like if it were so easy, I mean, we would have already had this groove in. It's called a bank where like, black people just put our money in, but yet and still like financing is not as easy as, is made out to be on purpose, because if it was, we would be having more banks than churches. For example, we'd be having more banks than mosques. Where is the NOI bank? You know what I'm saying? It's just simple things like that where like, it's a bank, right? And like you put your money in a bank, just like, you know what I'm saying, these folks supposedly do. I mean, Africans didn't have banks, but actually we understood wealth differently. You know what I'm saying? Wealth is in people and in the materials and making sure that things are upkept. I think, we had strong structures. You know what I'm saying? Our wealth is in our way of life. You know what I'm saying? Healthy life, you know what I'm saying? Healthy, health is wealth. And like, if you were all sickly and stuff, I mean, black people knew well enough about like not going into excess, but then white folks come in with this odd stuff and got, I don't know, having excess of that and then not enough for us, basically. So like, we do. Honestly, I think we don't blame white people for enough of our problems, quite frankly. If we want to be honest, like we say we blame, we don't do that. It's just, if we blame white people for 70% of our problems, we would probably be better off, because we never really analyzed, you know what I'm saying, what it is. He talked about, one of the things that tripped me up, he talked about like, financial literacy is like phonics, and like, I'm starting to break it down. It's like, yeah, but like, you're not giving me an alphabet. It's like, what do you mean? It's like money is like reading. Financial literacy is just counting. You know what I'm saying? If you're literate with letters, but there's numbers, it's just knowing how to count and knowing how to anticipate. Financing, which is like the finishing off of a payment. That's what financing is. You're finishing off the payment. You know what I'm saying? That's all it is. I'm gonna pass the mic.
RBG dropped a couple of bars in that little statement there. I hope people paid attention to what he was saying. If black folks really did blame the white man for 95% of their problems, they'd probably have a better understanding of what's going on. They're probably better organized. That's an interesting take right there. With that said, let's hear from Jose on this one. Jose would say.
Yes. I I think it's a poverty mindset to count your bills as wealth. I used to. I noticed that at a certain moment in my life that I had people around me that would count like. To say that they had a BMW, they talked all the time about the bills, right? To maintain, to keep that thing driving, right? And I noticed something about that spending is not a way to measure your wealth. Like I said initially, right? You don't measure your wealth by your bills. right? And I remember I watched this video myself a couple of days or maybe weeks ago, and I remember reacting on it, something like, okay, you count your spending money, but is that really your worth, right? What is really your worth? Take yourself off of the American or European balance, right? Take yourself off of the balance of their balance, and see what you're worth then, right? So of course I'm I'm 100% Exodus, right? but think about it, right? If we are still on their equation, right? We are on their balance. We can sum how much we spend in their books, but that it makes no sense, right? That's not how you measure your worth. I'm this number. I'm this number in his books. Think, McFly, think. And that's I'm gonna keep it short because I think it's overwhelmingly clear. Like we're counting in his books. What how does that make sense? Thank you.
Appreciate that, Jose. With that said, let's hear from our brother Anthony. Anthony, what's it?
Yeah, yeah. Hey, I agree with all of the brothers, man. I'm thinking, okay, you know, I mean, it's kind of funny listening to one of the brothers from the Nation of Islam, break down, financial literacy and financial, and all of that stuff. If you think about it, go back to the 1950s and 1960s. What was the main premise? The main premise of the Nation of Islam. Hey, have any of the brothers, y'all remember those Final Call magazines, brothers?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yeah,
those Final Call magazines. If you get those old Final Call magazines, at the bottom of it, one of the main things that they say, oh, it's called what we believe, what the Muslims believe. And this was something that he didn't even bring up really. He said that we want some land. That's what he said. We need land. That was one in those little proposals that they had at the bottom. We want land. Now he's talking about financial, about what we do and what we don't do as far as finance. I mean, he was talking some stuff that if you ain't educated, in some things, if you don't have knowledge of something, you'll say, "Oh, that sounds pretty good, man." He making sense. But I'm saying, basically, what I'm saying, we could, hey man, how the heck we produce, we consumers, not producers. You know what I'm saying? Black people in America, African people, we are consumers, not producers. You know what I'm saying? You can't consume your way into liberation. You know what I'm saying? You can't consume your way into freedom. You know what I'm saying? You can't buy your way into freedom. You know what I'm saying? You had to be a producer. You know what I'm saying? And to be a producer, you got to have land. Because what? Land is the basis. Malcolm told us that. Garvey told us that. The basis of power is land for a people. You know what I'm saying? How you gonna be a stateless people, a people without a land, a people without a country, and be economically feasible, man, economically prosperous. You gotta have some land to produce, you know what I'm saying? To build your power from, your power base from. So I thought it was interesting that he didn't bring that up, being a Nation of Islam guy, but these new Nation of Islam guys, they're something else. I mean, and don't get me wrong. Hey, I don't advocate for the Nation of Islam, at all. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I really don't give a damn about nothing what they say. I don't even take them seriously. But I'm just saying, at least at one time, that's what they was talking about. They was talking about land. Land being the basis of power, or your economic power. He didn't even say that. He's just talking about how us buying wigs and weaves and all this old bullshit. But you know what I'm saying? I mean, I even think about, okay, let's take it here. We talk about because this is a global thing, not just with black people in America. I could go to the Bahamas. I ain't picking on the Bahamas or Buana and all Coco. The Bahamas or Jamaica or any other tourist destination in the Caribbean. Our nation's tourist destination. Like, think of this here, all of the billion Coco, the billions, the hundreds of millions, and the billions of dollars that are brought into the Bahamas every year, from tourism. Because, the Bahamas is one of the main tourist places in the world. You know what I'm saying? People love going to that, that Atlantis place?
Yeah,
Down
Paradise
there.
Island.
Yeah, going to a Paradise Island, Atlantis. I mean, and just think about all of that. Now, I can sit up and say, as a Bahamian brother, look at all of the billions of dollars that we make every year. But how much of that money reach down to the common people? You know what I'm saying? To the average Bahamian. Man, I know in some parts of the Bahamas, it's getting too expensive for Bahamians to go. You know what I'm saying? How they head into tour.
That's a fact.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we can't even go over here to such and such island. I'm just picking, I don't know a name of it. I'm just saying Andros Island just for the hell of it. I don't mean Andros Island. But you know what I'm saying? Well, this the island that Sydney Porte, they'd made a tourist spot of that. They'll take the white folks over there, European, other people, and hey, this is where Sydney Porte used to live at. You know what I'm saying? Okay, let's see a Bahamian brother and sister try to go there. You know what I'm saying? And spend a night at a hotel or Airbnb. You know what I'm saying? I mean, look at the hotels down there. Let's go to Jamaica. I mean, they just had recently, it was in Jamaica where some Jamaican brothers and sisters was what? They were like, they kind of like had a protest thing like, man, we can't even go on the beach. On certain beaches. In some of them resorts. But then again, we're saying, look at all of the billions and billions of dollars that come in tourism to our country. So, when I hear about black people talking about all these black people in America talking about all these trillions of dollars we got 1.6 billion trillion or this or that or whatever the figures is. Goddamn, you buying shit. Yeah, you spending your money, you buying shit. Like you said, we got a $1.6 trillion buying power. But what about your $1.6 trillion producing power? You know what I'm saying? What you producing? You going out buying shit and making somebody else rich. You know what I'm saying? We talk about the motherland, about Africa. Africa's rising and Africa is the richest continent. You know what I'm saying? But where does all of those billions and trillions of dollars trickle down to our people? You know what I'm saying? Where does it trickle down to our people? It don't. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, I get sick and tired of hearing this old mess until we start controlling our own stuff and taking care of our own, and taking control of our own destiny. Man, I don't want to hear nothing about we got this kind of, this 1.6. We the richest, we the 8th richest nation. Why are you a nation? You ain't got no damn land. You know what I'm saying? How you a nation? And he admitted himself that you don't have no viable institutions. You know what I mean? All of this foolishness, man. I don't have time for this stupidness, man. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we know what we have to do. We know what we have to do. And of course, like the brothers, like Black Steel said, of course. Yeah. Hell yeah, that honky is responsible for a lot of stuff. Because I mean, he not gonna ever make the road smooth for you to be all you could be. But at the same time, we also have responsibility for ourselves. We got to do what we got to do. We got to deal with him, but we also got to do what we got to do. But we need to quit all this old braggadocious stuff about all this money we got. But you got no goddamn money. I'll leave it at that.
I appreciate that, Anthony. Anthony used the Bahamas in a couple of examples, and no offense taken at all. In fact, it reminded me, I read a graphic during this week here, bringing it back to what Anthony was talking about as far as having land and managing that land, and the examples he used the Bahamas in. And I saw something like the percent of food imports in the region, in this Caribbean region, Central America and South America. And believe it or not, the Bahamas is second highest importers of food. Trinidad and Tobago being the first. And I forget who was third, but I think one of the only countries in the region that has complete food sovereignty is like the country next to Haiti there.
Probably Cuba. República Dominicana. No, the country next to Haiti is República Dominicana.
Yeah, the DR has food sovereignty. Anthony, go ahead.
Oh, hey, yeah, Coco. I just wanted to say something real quick. I was just doing some research. I was on YouTube, and it's this sister. The sister it's not as her. It is a group of brothers and sisters who they was talking about this very thing, and they was talking about how to make the Bahamas more food self-sufficient. No, I was just checking this out on YouTube, man. That's all I wanted to say.
And
Yeah.
if I may jump in that real quickly, I mean, you're talking about my area, which is known as the CELAC, which is the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States. So you're talking about my particular area in that sense. And yeah, I could go on for hours. But suffice to say, what is interesting in this sense, bringing up the example of the Bahamas, which is a foundational Black American country in the America, interestingly enough, part of the Commonwealth, something that Barbados just left, another foundational Black American country in the Caribbean, left the Commonwealth just recently. Jamaica is about to leave the Commonwealth very soon. Bahamas is being pressured to leave the Commonwealth. If we look at that particular subject, food independence, there are three major characteristics that need to be put on the table on the conversation. First of all, would be the CAFTA deal that happened back in the 90s, which is the free trade agreement between the United States, Canada, Central America, and the Caribbean, which Bahamas was not part of. Why? Because Bahamas is part of the Commonwealth. Therefore, they would not have entered into that free trade agreement. Funnily enough, the conditions of that circumstances and the impacts towards sovereignty of food as a human right, especially in the Caribbean, is being sold out. And one of those particulars is the tourist attraction. Like it or not, tourism has a negative side to it. And one of those negative sides is the immigration of U.S. residents towards Bahamas or the Caribbean that take up then space and then take up that possibility of development of those type of issues like food independence and food production towards the internal Bahamas. Caribbean right now it's an area that holds 43.9 million people. So just think about that. And 85% of those people are of African descent. So just,
yeah.
I just want to see. I guess it's my turn because everybody went already. I just want to see that Anthony is completely right in his analysis. Most people, when you come to the Bahamas, in the service industry, who work for hotels, most of them can't afford to live a week inside Atlantis. Whether you're taking your family on vacation and shit like that, all the maids who prepare your room, all the people who produce food for you and all that stuff, most of them will probably never want to stay unless they're getting some discount. Because usually if you work to the hotel, you get big discounts to stay there with your family members and things like that. But if they were to pay tourist prices, they would never be able to afford to stay in the hotels that they stay in. And if you want to make money in tourism, you have to work around the big major hotels. What I mean by that, you have to be a part of transportation. That means that you own buses, and many Bahamians do own bus services. They own bus services, transportation services, where they shuttle tourists back and forth from the hotels, but you have to get licensing to get that. And that's a difficulty in itself. Then the other part of you can make good money in transportation as part of the so-called tourism model, which the Bahamians majority they have a control of. Another thing is entertainment. Jet skiing. You see, usually tourists go to the beaches sometimes, and they want to have jet skis and things like service, these kinds of entertainment and shit like that, beaching activities. And many young entrepreneurs, they buy jet skis and they're able to garner a whole lot of money from that. But there's a whole issue of licensing. The government taxes heavily, these people to operate jet skis on these public beaches, but they are still able to make a whole lot of money within that industry. Then you have all other aspects of entertainment, whether it's through, you have a talent to sing, you can perform at hotels, you can have a little entrepreneur enterprise in that. Then you have gambling. You have a whole lot of multi-millionaires, young millionaires have been produced, because they have been able to create that so-called gambling industry in the Bahamas. So they're around the so-called big enterprise of where you see tourists come to the hotels. There are other aspects around tourism that Bahamians have been able to garner a lot of money from, because they don't work within the hotels as the labor. They use their brain. It's like, oh, okay. Since I don't want to be able to always be at the service end saying, have this drink, sir, or master, or whoever, they buy the little small things, or they engage in some enterprise around the tourism model, around the industries, and they've been able to garner a whole lot of money from that, sending their children to school, doing different kinds of things. You go to there's a whole lot. I don't want to get into that. I'll just leave that alone. But let me just say this. I disagree with most of the brothers' analysis in terms of this particular gentleman, because our economics is different, and I know I talking to my brothers who are more socialistically inclined. So I think that the difference is when Ditso talks about this particular gentleman, I think that he kind of confused. He kind of like he veers off a little bit, and he kind of introduces the religious and political aspect of what this man was saying as regards to economics, which is two different kinds of things. These are two different things. So I wouldn't necessarily I understand he's coming from the Nation of Islam. I understand that his religion is Islam and an Abrahamic faith. But when it comes to economics is more practical. I think that one thing don't necessarily have to do with another in reference to what this guy was referencing. Also, when Black Steel talks about the historical ways in which the white man has been able to use empire to garner his wealth, I don't particularly think that this conversation has anything to do with what this particular gentleman is talking about. And I can say why in a minute. Anthony mentioned specifically, he said that we are primarily consumers, which he is absolutely right. But what do we consume? Usually we consume things that there are products that don't necessarily benefit us. If every McDonald's I purchase a stock in McDonald's. I am still a consumer, but I am purchasing stock in the business and enterprise of which the products I buy from McDonald's. Therefore, I could pay for my Big Mac by buying stock in McDonald's. And if that stock rises, I pay for 2 Big Macs, even though I purchased 1 Big Mac. As a consumer in America, I have access to the Fortune 500 companies of the world. And with my money, even though it's small money, I could purchase $100 worth of what? $100 worth of Apple. $100 worth of Apple. I could purchase $100 worth of Burger King. I could purchase $100 worth of Starbucks. The same Starbucks coffee in which I purchase every day, I could purchase a degree of stock in that little by little by little. And after a while, these things will accrue more and more money after time. So yes, I am a consumer, but I am making an investment in what I am consuming. So I can get a benefit from that. If I knew, or if I had any kind of idea of what financial literacy, what this guy was talking about, if I knew about all the animals, a stash where I could put my money a little bit of money, and purchase a little bit of stock, a little bit at a time through time, and I know that I'll be able to garner 10% on my money from 18 years old to where I am right now. I will be able to see the benefit of that. But if I'm ridiculous and I'm just putting my money in banks where I know that even if I put all of my money based on all of my labor, what I would have produced from 18 until now, I wouldn't be able to see half of that come back to me because the banks don't provide interest. But other vehicles, when it comes to trading, when it comes to investment, they do. But if I don't know that, then I won't get the best for my buck, for my money. And yes, it's important to save a little. Yes, it's important to invest a little. 10% here, 10% there in a long time with so-called compound interest. This is another thing I learned as a grown man, and I didn't know as a child that these things have advantageous value after a time. They have advantageous value. So I can't throw out the baby with the bathwater and say, well, the white man inherit all his wealth this way. No, there are some people who practice smart spending. They don't just practice conspicuous spending like we do. And you can't ignore the fact that we practice conspicuous spending where it was unnecessary. I'm not saying white men don't do. I'm not saying the Chinese or the Mexicans don't do. I'm primarily focused on our community, and we practice conspicuous spending. We are 100% consumers and not producers and not investors. I'm saying if we practice the so-called money game wrong, the consequences of that money game gonna come out wrong. I have seen, just like many of you all have, where you drive into very poor areas and you see $100,000 cars. You see $100,000 cars pulling up to apartment buildings, and I'm saying, what is the problem here? What is the problem here? These are things that we can't ignore within our community, and we have to have discussions like this. This man, when he talking to me, it makes a whole lot of sense. Maybe it doesn't to the brothers, but it makes a whole lot of practical economic sense to me. I'll leave it there, Kofi.
Cap. I got it. I'm about to say something.
Hold on.
I wanted to go next if possible.
So two things. One, as far as what Buana was saying, I did want to ask that follow-up question. No one's really addressing the soundness or unsoundness of the actual advice. I mean, is it sound to practice 10, 10, 10, 40, 70, 10, 10, 10, 70, etc. So that's something I'd like you guys to address in your follow-ups, but also please keep it brief because I would like to get to another topic before the night's done.
I'll be fast.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So first of all, to what Buana was saying, Black people in our consumption. What were Black people buying back in the 19th century? Black people have always been poor. All right. So my question is, what were we buying back then that made us poor? If we've always been poor and our poverty is caused by our consumption and buying things we don't need, what were we buying back then? Were we buying Jordans back then? Were we buying, straw hats? Were we buying? We're going out to the ragtime band. What were we buying back then? The problem is that here's the thing: we want to, for some reason, focus on the things Black people are doing wrong, right? And we ignore what white people are doing. They got us in the condition that we're in. So we can talk about Black people buying Jordans or shoes or clothes or whatever they buy, right? But when we talk about literally billions of dollars worth of wealth that were stolen from Black people, just from America, right? What created the white middle class? What gave white people an allowance? Is that after World War II, right? Many returning soldiers got the GI Bill. It allowed them to go to college, allowed them to buy a home. These same benefits were denied to Black soldiers, right? But we talk about what white people did to gain wealth. White people had opportunities that Black people were denied systemically. But yet we talking about what Black people are not buying with our money. What are we talking about here? People are allowed. Same thing I told Oni. It's okay for people to have nice things. Okay, that is not an excuse for people to be in poverty because they bought some shoes, or you took your mom. You took your mom to a nice restaurant for Mother's Day. That's not an excuse for people to be poor. Until we look at the real systemic things behind it. And I see y'all talking bad about socialists in the comment. Don't think I don't see that. All right, I'll address that another time. But for right now, okay, let's get it understood. Sorry, my TV. This is Belichick. Sorry, guys, my TV. Let's get it understood that the wealth that black people's lack of wealth does not come from our spending habits. I'm sorry. That is a well used trope to focus the blame on us for the effects of racism.
Anyone else have any
Yes.
follow-up?
If I may, just to answer that, follow up real quickly. One, the problem, and I agree with most what the first speaker was saying. The problem with the arguments presented by this brother of the Islamic nation is that it is oversimplistic. It does not treat the underlying situations, and in a irresponsible way decides to then treat the financial reality or the financial woes as merely as a broken record advice. There are clear issues of distribution of wealth that has affected African American communities, not only in the United States but throughout the whole Western Hemisphere. There are clear indicators of problems of that generational wealth and that distributional wealth in the last 250 years. Has there been improvement on that accessibility of that wealth towards, and in particular, the United States? Yes, there has been some improvements, but those improvements have been minimal because the analysis of an economic sense cannot be seen from an isolated aspect. So he makes the complete and utter wrong conclusion, a trope of saying, well, the financial woes of the African American in the United States is because of their spending habits. That's bullshit. No, the economic woes of the African American in the United States, as well as in the rest of the Western Hemisphere, has to do with a clear economic system that has continuously and systematically put them in a disadvantage against the white man. And in a more individual sense, yes, there are some individuals who make wrong financial decisions, but that's not exclusive of just the Afro-descendancy communities.
Anyone else have some thoughts there? All right, good conversation. What we'll do is we'll go to what's probably the last topic of the night. Should be topic number 3 says. Oh, you know what? Before I ask that question, let me ask a quick question of the panelists or people in the chat. If Farrakhan was to take his final rest tomorrow, who's the next in line to lead that organization? I'm just curious about that. Who's the next in line to lead that organization?
I have no idea. I have no idea the structure.
It'll be a civil war.
Ooh, interesting. The Civil War. Always here for that.
All right, appreciate that.
I have no idea what that. That's a good question, Koku. I have no idea either, brother. I have no idea.
Who has he groomed for leadership?
I think that his son, who is always behind him, who's always with him traveling as well. I think that he is probably the closest person who I would think that would assume his mantle if he dies. But I have no idea besides his son, his direct. I think everyone knows a light-skinned guy, kind of like a handlebar mustache. He's always standing behind him. I think that he would probably be the most likely person. If
I thought his son died.
Passes, but I have no idea.
Yeah, his son died.
Yeah.
It would probably be like somebody like
No,
a brother
not
like
that one. No,
Rizzo
no, no,
Islam.
no, no, no. His son, the guy who you talking about, that's not the guy who died. The guy who died was another one. That's not the one who was usually behind him. It's another one. Light skinned fella. I forget his name now. But I know you talking about though, but that's not the one who died though.
Okay. Kofi was in the back. I don't know if Kofi was in the back for that whole discussion just now. Kofi, how are you this week?
I'm good. Now, I wasn't in the back that long.
Okay.
I rewind the discussion, see what it was about, and everyone is basically right. What he's saying is absolutely right. I'm gonna comment real quick on a different angle. The Nation of Islam is pride with starting black organizations, and they were part of the civil rights era where a lot of black people mobilized and did for self, which is very commendable. I'm not trying to take anything away from that, right? The thing is, when you hear them talk about economical empowerment and why black people aren't aggregating their money together, and okay, we spend $1 trillion, but it's an income, and it's not being spent together as a community. They're all right. See, the thing is about them, when I look at them, I'm like, hey, you guys have a successful community, right? In Chicago, they got like their own, they got bakeries, they got stores, they got all these things. The thing about them, and I find very hypocritical with them, they're not sharing their community with just everyday black folks. You had to be a part of their organization to get this economical advancement. So it's pretty much like a club. So every time people from the Nation of Islam always giving financial advice on what they have to do, to me, I see it as a recruiting tool. Because how long has it been since Elijah Muhammad? How long has it been since Malcolm X has passed? We're talking decades, right? And they do have somewhat of an infrastructure. But the reason why I think while they're stagnant as far as their economy within their community is that you have to be a Muslim. You have to be that. So they'll talk to black people because it's their people. But as far as like expanding them, from my view, from here, looking from the outside in, it's basically a recruiting tool. Because if they were really about that business, or really about, you know what, this is what black people need to get on board, they would expand that. But you gotta be a Muslim. You gotta be this. You gotta sell Final Call. Again, I support the NOI in their endeavors, what they do in this country, but I think they'd be more effective if they took that on the road and actually put the money where their mouth is, instead of saying, well, okay, welcome to the nation, brother. Welcome to the nation, sister. Okay, now we could do all this. They don't operate economically as black people. They only act economically when it comes to the Nation of Islam. That's it. So that's just an angle. I mean, from an American standpoint, it's good. But internationally, they can't talk internationally because their white man is the Muslim. Like, you're not gonna get TD Jakes.
Yeah, but Kofi.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Kofi, in every organization, you have to give something to get something, brother. You can't. I understand we want our people to be free, but to have, if I have an organization and I condition my people in a way to open that organization up to everyone, without having them give something to get something, then I am inviting the Charleston whites of the world within my organization. And what are they going to do? They're going to mash up my organization. Why? Because they don't have the requisite discipline that they need to exist in my organization. If you consider, right now, the issue is immigration in America. To have this unfettered access of foreign people coming into the country without them being quote unquote properly vetted into the system, they're going to mash up the system. So you must have, they must be first of all, they must be qualified to be a part of the American system first. Then we have to condition them in a way that they could exist within my system. You have to give something to get something. You can't just invite everybody in because they desperate and hungry. You're going to mash up my country.
I don't disagree with that. But my problem with the Nation of Islam is, why do there have to be a religious test? Why do I have to be a Muslim in order to do business with you? That's my issue. Everything you're saying is true, but why do I have to be a part of a religious organization as far as, being a Muslim in order to do business? I thought it was about being black. If it's about being black, why haven't you taken your economical show on the road and replicated in black society? Even during the time of the Nation of Islam, you had to be a part of the nation in order to do that. It was like, okay, my Christian brothers and sisters, hey, let's do business. You know what I'm saying? Well, we got a farm in the South, we got people in the South and stuff like that. All right, let's deal with the black people there in the South. No, a Muslim farm, Nation of Islam farm, a Nation of Islam bakery. You could have your own, but why work there networking with other black people? Because it's a religious thing. It's a group. Religion is always about who could be in your group, how many people you could gather, and that's what I see. But everything you're saying is absolutely right. But the Nation of Islam can only go so far because it's a political religious organization. And Malcolm X knew that because when he went and he saw what real Islam's supposed to be, he understood, oh, this is not what real Islam's supposed to be, but it is what it is because of black people being in America. So they have to have their own particular brand of it. But it should not have to be religion, because the next person or next movement is not going to be a person that's political. It's not going to be a person that's religious. It's going to be a person that's just going to be about the people, and that's it. So I'll rest it right there so we get to the next subject.
Appreciate that, Kofi. In the chat, but Bakari said Wesley Muhammad would be leader. I forgot about Wesley Muhammad. He was there. He was being pushed a lot just before the pandemic, I feel, and then I kind of lost track of him. Trigger Happy 262 Plus says, I don't mind organizations built on a spiritual basis because I think we need organizations built on African spirituality. Someone has to mute their mic. Built on African spirituality, and many of our problems will be more adverse to that than Islam. With that said, let's go to Shoot the Breeze. Damn it, I just lost it. Let's go to the next topic.